Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the USL Show. And baby, the USL is back. The championship is here. League One is around the corner, and Phil put in a title in our private chat, and calling it USL Championship Cope-Ning Week is going to be the title of the show because, oh man, are we all sipping on the copium. A 1-1 draw. You got a 1-1 draw. We all got a 1-1 draw, unless you lost 1-0 or 5-3. Because it was either all goals or no goals, and that's just the USL, babe. Welcome to the chaos. Look, we have a lot to chat about. We're going to change up some of the formats of the show for this year. Tell us what you think of it. But first, Phil, I talked about you already, man. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It was an interesting weekend. You know, we had a third straight manager in Locomotive history start with a loss. It's the only way to get it going. So, it's the only way we've done it. So anyways, I've been interested that the fan base has stayed relatively calm in the aftermath, and excited to talk about what went down elsewhere, because it was not calm elsewhere, I would say.
I feel like majority of the fan bases kind of understand that this week was opening week, and I think almost every team just looked like it was opening week, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But some teams came out the gate firing, but other teams in most games, it was just like, well, we both got a goal from it. John, how are you doing, man?
Yeah, doing really well. Obviously excited to dive deep back into the all-consuming world that is the USL for me. So just real quick on that point, I kind of fired up my own XG machine. Pretty much every game was within one expected goal. Like, I think this is going to be a high parity year, and I'm really excited to see what gives.
If this year ends up being USL League One level of chaos for the championship, I'm all in on it. Will it be frustrating? Will I be confused? Will I be scared? Yes, but I think everybody should have to experience what League One was last year. So, Ryan, speaking of League One, talking about that drip shirt that you have on. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well today. Yeah, for those who are just listening to the recording, I'm wearing a Forward Madison kit, and I have at least one guest host behind me as a cat who's in our studio, but she may make an appearance or she may just sit and stare. But happy to get into a lot of just recapping USL Championship action. Unfortunately, even though we had 5 1-1 draws, it has broken my dream of having all teams finishing level on 34 points, each with every game being 1-1. So maybe next year.
But eventually, which law is that eventually it'll happen? Is that Murphy's? No,
I think, or what Murphy's is. Something about
anything that can happen will happen, right?
Yeah.
So eventually, like the monkey with the typewriter, the USL will create a complete 1-1 draw season. We'll get there.
Decide the championship by a drawing of lots.
Every draw, everywhere, all at once.
Next week's episode title.
Listen, last year we were seeing red cards. This year we're just seeing draws, and that's fine. Let's go ahead and talk about the week that was, because what we're going to do this year is we're going to only preview 5 to 6 matches, because normally we kind of talk about the match that was with those anyway, and doing 10 just made some of these episodes really long. And a lot of repeating things. But we do want to talk about some matches. And in order to get us into one of these matches, which was probably the most entertaining match of the weekend, we're going to show you what was on our Twitter account. which is our USL Tactics show by, USL Tactics. And we're going to get into this and have him explain the USL Championship, basically, and what happened in this Monterey Bay versus Hartford match.
Hello and welcome
Please
into
tell
the
me if
first
you guys can
edition
hear
of
this.
the USL Tactics Show for 2023. Every Tuesday, I'll break down a big player or tactic
Can you
that
hear it?
defined the weekend. So let's get down to it with Alex Dixon and Monterey Bay FC. They crushed Hartford 5-3 in an opening week, and it was really founded upon that hat trick from Alex Dixon, the new signing that Monterey added from Pittsburgh this offseason. They changed their formation from a much more defensive sort of 4-1-4-1, often seen last year, into more of a 4-3-3, a 4-2-3-1, headlined by Dixon up top. How did it make the difference and take advantage of that Hartford shape? There were a lot of long balls, a lot of direct play, but they all took advantage and they made smart runs that leveraged Hartford's use of one single defensive midfielder. Dixon comes in from right towards the left, cutting behind that lone midfielder, and that's how he got his first goal, in addition to some defensive mistakes. You're seeing the same thing here, though. Monterey plays and advances into the final third, where they're able to settle into possession because of that single DM effect. Meanwhile, within the box, Sam Gleadle and Dixon are just probing around, finding space, finding gaps between defenders, and really effectively getting on to the end of this cross that you're going to see in a moment from Max Glasser. This is the sort of thing that Monterey lacked last year. I'm a fan of what Christian Valesky adds, but Dixon is an elite scorer in the box in these scenarios. Finally, Dixon ended with a penalty, but once again, you're seeing the same thing. Direct play from Monterey, Hartford can't cope, and the speed of Gleadle, the speed of Boone, and Dixon's poise are able to carry this team into situations where they are putting Hartford in jail. Dixon is going to convert the penalty in a second here, capping off a really wonderful debut. And this is a Monterey Bay team that you should be paying attention to. If they can figure out the offense in addition to a elite defensive core, they really could cause trouble in the West.
So basically, it's time for people to finally jump on the hype train with me. This Monterey Bay was the team that I said it was my dark horse to win it all. And I get it. It's the first game of the season. I get it. But this is also not the same team as last year that would not score any goals and was struggling defensively. As John said, I'm going to let him jump into it. Defeat the, elite defensive pairing and some of the best strikers and offensive, firepower they can get. It's usually a decent recipe.
There were times when you got to the end of last season where Monterey would put in a very strong defensive performance, and whenever they got a goal, it sort of felt lucky, like they were just lobbing it up in the direction of Gleadle and Boone and relying on the pace to hopefully generate something. Dixon is the piece that adds a little bit more class, a little bit more quality to what they're doing. He's allowed them to change up the shape in a way that's really effective. I'm just a fan of what he adds within this team. And granted, Hartford is pretty much designed to be vulnerable to what Monterey was bringing. I thought that they had a completely shambolic game in defense, honestly, in a lot of ways. But if Monterey can keep up this style of play, the technical level that they brought, they're going to get results against teams that are much better in defense as well.
And what was surprising from Hartford last year, despite all of their struggles, they never had a match where they conceded more than 3 goals in a game. And you have to go all the way back to 2020, the 10th game of that season, that truncated, shortened season, where they lost 5-0 to Pittsburgh to find the last time that they conceded 5 goals in a match, whereas Monterey Bay had that 5-0 victory over Indy 11 last season, where they got 5 of their own.
I gotta say, I think Monterey Bay, obviously, they look sharper. And to John's point, I think there is an element of they've created these goals rather than Hartford necessarily, or them having an element of luck. I will say that I'm hesitant to jump on the bandwagon yet because Hartford did really play poorly. And they scored 5 from all 5 shots on target. Like, I know regardless, like, one's an own goal, so technically only 4 of their shots on target went in. But anyways, like, I think the more troubling or maybe the more the takeaway that I'm taking from this game is maybe not so much positive on Monterey as like deeply, deeply concerning for Hartford to come out and be so all over the place in the first game of the season. Like, you'd expect some maybe dysfunction in the team, but this was just like next level. They just were awful in a lot of these defensive situations. So the project at Hartford is not off to a great start when there was a lot of hype considering the signings they made this offseason.
Yeah, and here's the thing though. A big takeaway for me with Hartford was something that I mentioned on the show several times, and I've mentioned it a few times other places. I'm not going to say that this is going to be this is all of the goalkeeper's fault, but there's a couple of those goals that I do think Joe Rice stops.
I've been on this bandwagon with you of Richard Sanchez is a bad goalkeeper. Like, they started center backs that aren't good at defending. We were harping on it a lot. I think we were more negative than the consensus on this team, but man, we were very right if that week was any indication.
Yeah, the fourth he never, like, that should never go in. And yeah, for it to basically be squeezed under him at the near post is, it's just shocking stuff.
And I am all in on that. Joe Rice could be one of the best goalkeepers in the league if given a chance to start. Not saying the best, I'm not saying that, but it could be in that conversation. And yet they went with what was comfortable, even though what's comfortable made everybody uncomfortable to watch. I was going to have a segue from the chat, but I decided to go somewhere else because we had a different match that happened this weekend that was kind of strange. San Diego Loyal only scored 1 goal and didn't concede any, which I don't know. It feels like we were actually watching Detroit City and not San Diego. To talk about that, Alan, hey.
I thought you were going to go with, speaking of awkward, and so like
looking dapper though.
Yeah, I just got
looking good.
I literally just got in the house. Yeah, it was weird, but I think talking with the coach Nate Miller after the game, where he's like, the team really focused on trying to play team defense. It's not shocking that your offensive game plan is not clicking. Same thing with your shifting who your strikers are after the season starts is going to lead to some issues as well. But the defense looked pretty decent. Detroit City is not exactly the most offensive team in the league, so there's that to say as well. And it'll be interesting to see when Phoenix comes to town, who has a little bit more offensive firepower with a guy like Danny Trejo, which able to see what he was able to do. It'll be interesting to see how well they handle Phoenix in San Diego. I expect it to get better, but day games in San Diego, if you look up the record, are not good for San Diego. They don't win in day games in San Diego. It's wild. But I'm glad to be here. Like, I guess like a attacking midfielder, I'm making a late run into the box. And like a 19-year-old center back, I'm putting the most amazing volley to win the game. So shout out to Simba and his water bottle celebration because they couldn't give him beer.
I mean, it was one heck of a volley. It was any other week, that's a goal of the week winner. I do want to just bring up this real quick goal of the week discussion. I understand that Lamar, 25-day contract, center back scores probably the goal of his life. I want to throw this out there. I don't think anybody's going to catch a ball cleaner than Velo did this weekend. I think that's the goal of the year. I know the bicycle is sexy, but I don't think you're going to see a better strike all year than Velo had against Tulsa.
I mean,
I don't have a disagreement.
It's a banger.
Yeah,
it looks gross.
It's funny because the one getting the more attention is the goal from his own half.
The clearance of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, where My favorite part of that is that he actually holds his hand up in apology, like that he overhit the pass and then it goes in. That was probably the funniest moment of the weekend for me.
Is that the best goal or the worst goalkeeping? Because like he could get to it. He like swats at it, but he like misses. If that was me, that's what I would have done. I'm like, oh.
The still frame of poor Blanchett just laying there next to the goal, just laying there for like 5 full seconds as he just like soaks in. Oh no, that just went in.
So as a goalkeeper, which one's worse, that goal or the goal where it's like you go to save it and you tip it off of the post and it bounces back off of like your head and in?
It has to be the one that you swat at because whenever you're a goalkeeper, you know, you're trying to sometimes you obviously want to tip it over the bar, but a tip onto the bar is usually a success because it normally doesn't tip back at your head. You just feel silly. But swatting at a ball like it's a gnat and then failing, it's not great.
I mean, at this pace, we're going to have a goalkeeper score from their own half this year.
I mean, we already had Joe Kosminski last year go to, you know, get in the box and score. And I'm blanking on his name. Omaha's keeper last year who scored one that his XG was .0001. It was, I think you're right. I'm blanking now because I don't think it was their normal keeper that started that game.
Oh, right.
It was weird. Anyway, speaking of scoring goals, listen, as we all predicted for the second year in a row, Loudoun was the first team to score in the USL season. As we all thought, the People's Champions are back. And whenever I think there was a quote that came from Stephen Glass after the match from Memphis's new head coach. I think he said that on the results, he said, "I won't lie, I'm pretty devastated." Or wait, was that somebody else? I don't remember. Anyway,
oh man.
I would like to say I was the only one of our predictors to take Loudoun in that opening game, and I backed them from the start. So I think they're going to win the Club World Cup in about 2 years.
You heard it here first. Loudoun's promotion.
You know, here's the thing for me is that it's not even just the fact that, you know, the Goodrum situation happened and then for them to fall flat like that. I didn't realize it until Trent slid into my DMs and showed me, or slid into my mentions on Twitter. I didn't realize that they spelled his name wrong. They didn't even call him Goodrum. It was Goodham. That's incredible. I love everything about that. The fact that they misspelled his name after he said he was devastated. On one hand, it was probably, you know, just a quick job that they tried to get out quick. On the other hand, it definitely feels like it was on purpose.
They briefly considered putting bad rum on the back of the kit and decided instead just to go with the very nuanced good.
Just to hit on the game, like tactically, that was a mess from Memphis. Everything that they did last year where and granted there were some injuries. I think missing Leston Paul in the middle forced Aaron Malloy to play much more defensively and take on more responsibility. And that limited what he could do as a creator. But putting Rashawn Dolly at fullback when he's always been a striker was bizarre and it hurt them immediately. At the same time, like they completely lost the principles that made them so good under Ben Pierman. They weren't pressing. They were so direct out of the back and didn't control the game. Loudoun ended up kind of shelling and parking the bus halfway through, and it came back to bite them a little bit. But when Loudoun was taking it to Memphis, they were the better side by a mile, and that has to be concerning if you're Memphis 901 in your first game under a new manager.
I guess I have two things on this, and I said it preseason. And again, first game, I can't say that I was right for anything, right? But I didn't believe in their defense last year. I thought it was borderline Swiss cheese, and I thought it got worse this year. And I know I got a little bit of pushback for that, but also part of what made the defense decent last year was the fact that they could outpress anybody and win the ball before it ever got to their back line. I just fear that they lost a lot of that. They, you know, players came back expecting their coach to be back, and then he's not. And it just looked awful. Also, can we just surely Castillo is going to get his red card rescinded, right? Surely he's not going to get actual banned for getting his head massaged and then swatting and not even hitting someone. Like,
I don't know. It's kind of tough because I feel like USL's had a lower bar around overturning red cards than like most leagues. Like most often it's just like if there was contact, then is what it is. USL has had a track record of overturning this sort of stuff, but I don't know. For me, it's like it's borderline enough in real time to say like, yeah, I get why like he showed red, but I guess I don't know. We'll see, but I wouldn't necessarily like rescind it just for the like, yeah, it's soft, but I don't know that it's like such a shocking decision when he throws his hand back like towards the dude's face. So
I guess where I come from is the fact that what he was having happen to him happens to me every time I get my hair cut. Like he was getting in there and then he tells him to knock it off.
Yeah, no, that is fair.
I think two things from this conversation is what is like if it's not Swiss cheese and it's like almost Swiss cheese, is that like just cheese with like indentations instead of holes? I digress. I was really impressed with Loudon's ability to press and pressure the ball early on. It was are they sitting back or is it they can't maintain it for full 90 minutes? I don't think anyone probably can. And then also thinking about the length of the season is Loudon will have to pick and choose. And if it's this effective, like they're going to be able to do that, right? Like press really high, really intensely for 30 minutes, get a couple goals, get a bounce, right? One of those deflection. That's what happens when you put teams under pressure. And then they can sit back and survive a little bit. They don't have to be as pressing. But I was like watching that game and as a neutral being very entertained by Loudon in that first half. It was I had the Miami Tulsa game on my TV and Loudon on my phone, and I just stopped paying attention to the TV. I was like, this is engaging. This is fun. And so I'm excited to see what this Loudon team can do. I think with going into the game, it was a little bit unsure where they would be, but you got to feel a little bit better about Loudon being able to be competitive. And all of a sudden there isn't this easy whipping team in the East anymore from Loudon. These are going to be real legit games that teams are going to have to take seriously.
Yeah.
We saw from Loudon too, like a lot of intricate attacking play. It wasn't just like set pieces, anything like that. It's like the goals they scored were quality. Some really good one-touch stuff on the edge of the area, especially that. Was it the first goal or
that first goal?
That first goal was just lovely stuff from them. And then I think for Memphis, similar to Hartford, like, but more so Stephen Glass like oversaw a disaster in Aberdeen, and so it is there's levels, and it is whatever you can say it's USL Championship, but at the end of the day, like if it got out of hand there, it can totally get out of hand in Memphis too. Like there's nothing really stopping that. So I think Glass has his work cut out for him. I
do want to throw in a good word for Memphis in that missing Reese Buckmaster, who's their best defender, missing their only defensive midfielder on the roster.
Yeah.
Which in and of itself, that's problematic that you only have one and he's on the wrong side of 30. But it's going to be a big deal for them when they get those players back.
For sure.
And speaking from one old pyramid to the near pyramid squad, we got Charleston drawing Phoenix 1-1. This was a match that towards the very end, when Charleston really started going for it, it was like, this is a little more even than I was expecting this to become. The very beginning, especially right before and right after Phoenix scored their goal, it was like this could be a long, long day for Charleston. And then they never really seemed to quit. It seemed like they were always just right there, and they got that equalizer. And, that was one of those equalizers that you see the goal and it's like that just kind of dribbled in, but also should the keeper have done better? Maybe. you might be able to say that because I mean we did just kind of harp on Hartford for a kind of similar goal, but also just seeing Patriots Point erupt was awesome, especially after the year they had last year.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a Battery team who outshot Phoenix 17-5, and it harkened back to the old Charleston teams of USL past that it seemed like that team that we all expected them to be, and just that really tough out, though they didn't get the win this week. And it's something that should be encouraging for fans moving forward, as they now have a very tough matchup against the Sacramento side this upcoming week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I think, with speaking about the goalkeeper, I think Rios Novo actually has like a really, really good game. Like the goal aside, which, I think there's reasons that it happens, and he's reacting to a lot of like bodies in front of him, that sort of stuff. The rest of the game, like he makes some solid saves, and goalkeeping was a question for Phoenix. And I think like he did rise to the occasion for much of the match.
I see what you did there.
Stop.
And but Charleston did, they dominated much of the game. I think they'll be frustrated that they didn't get a win, because they did. For me, they deserved all 3 points, but at the end of the day, I guess Phoenix have that danger man in Danny Trejo now, and he can bail you out in some tough situations, because I don't think Phoenix were particularly impressive, but Charleston just failed to put them away. Although I think there's encouraging signs for Charleston. I think they look like the real deal.
Here's what I will say about Rios Novos, just real fast, before John Hobson says something more intelligent than I will. There was a while that I was fully on the boat that Rios Novos was the best keeper at Atlanta United. I thought he was better than Brad Guzan. I thought he was better than any of the GK2s that were at Atlanta United. But Rios Novos was kind of put on the it list because he was an international, and never really got that chance because he was young and he took up an international slot, and they would rather go with someone old and American because MLS. He's going to get a chance to go back to MLS. I do believe in that. I do think that goal that went in was a little soft. It's a hard one to concede after playing a great game. I'm sure he's going to be disappointed watching it back. But that said, Rios Novos has amazing upside.
Yeah, I think he got some run for the Argentine youth national team based on what they were saying on the commentary. Phoenix, kind of on the sly, gave up almost 3 expected goals, and basically no one else was within half of an expected goal. Like, they had the worst defensive performance in the league by a mile. They were starting a lot of new players, and Guerra had them switching between a 4-4-2 in defense and a 3-5-2 on the ball. So they were really not connected well in those transitions. And to an extent, that hurt them when they got possession. I think Trejo in particular, who was moving from more of a forward role to basically like the right winger in the 4-4-2, was really struggling to find the ball in transition, which is part of what makes his game so special. And then you saw the effect where he gets the goal when he finally gets to play as the striker. So things to figure out for Phoenix. I think they'll take that point pretty much guaranteed because they didn't deserve it, but a lot to like from that Charleston performance.
And I think that Phoenix defense, we talked about it in the preseason preview, that was the big question mark hanging over that team. Yeah. And it definitely still is after that performance in Charleston.
I mean, they ship out essentially 2 starting 11s, and they bring in 2 starting 11s.
Right.
It also remembering early San Diego. I don't think Phoenix fans will appreciate this comparison, but it reminded me a lot of that. Whereas possession for possession's sake, they were kicking around the back, they were holding onto the ball, but weren't really doing a lot with it. I do think that there's some upside for Phoenix, right? They have some talented players that they just need some time to put it together. You're dealing with some type of complex system. But yeah, I think Charlotte looked very positive as well. Not Charlotte. Charleston looked very positive as well. Oof. Charlotte
Welcome
does not
back,
look positive in
Independence.
MLS, by the way. Different team. But I was watching this game, being very entertained by the way the Battery was playing, and if you can get one more shot to go in, and maybe this is going to be the problem with them, is just their finishing. They can create as many chances as they want, but they got to find guys to put it in the back of the net consistently. Yeah, and not looking forward to seeing Danny Trejo. Yeah, and that's what makes Phoenix dangerous, right? This is like the Orange County of 2 years ago, where you had Ronaldo Damas up top. That if you were down a goal or you were draw, like it was a draw, like he could just one moment of brilliance, and all of a sudden you're losing or you're dropping points, and that's what Danny Trejo can bring if they can figure out how to use him in the system.
You just had to shoehorn Damas into the conversation.
Speaking of making,
it's just a rumor. Oh wait, it's confirmed now. It was just a rumor.
Yeah,
that was the joke. Like, that was just a rumor. It's
just had to shoehorn Damas in. Like, had to find a way to get it into the conversation.
I thought Dom Dwyer was the rumor.
Just a rumor, balls.
Yeah, wait, what happened to USL Insider? I missed that guy.
Yeah.
My
I will
mentions are
say,
pretty clear.
I guess last thing on Phoenix is they do have a tough run of games ahead to get all of this figured out. I mean, you have Loyal back-to-back, Birmingham, Monterey Bay, and San Antonio in these next few games, that there is not an easy let-up match ahead of them, and it could be a very tough opening month for them.
Well, if Birmingham can't find a midfielder that can pass the ball forward, I think they'll be fine. Anyway.
Or adequate concession stands.
Hey, we got food trucks now, babe.
Better, yeah, you upgraded.
Food trucks are back. But it was bad. Like, people were waiting in line for legit 50 minutes for a pretzel and beer. 50 minutes for pretzel and beer. Like, shout to them, I guess. But so speaking of Phil, and bringing you down, I'm sorry. El Paso loses 1-0 to Sacramento. But I think this kind of goes again to the point I made preseason. I really like this El Paso defense. I just wasn't sure where the goals were going to come from. And that's kind of what I saw in watching this match. I really like the defense, and I'm not sure where the goals are going to come from.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a strange one. I think El Paso's attacking depth was kind of not found out, but it was shown like, hey, this is an area that we've talked about. We probably need a guy, like a difference maker. Lucho Solignac misses out through a knock. Peter Petrovic, who was like their one other attacking signing from Sweden, he misses out with a knock. Ricardo Zacharias is a like high energy, all action sort of forward, but he does lack that little bit of like next level quality in terms of converting chances. And it was his chance 3 minutes in that basically like swung the game like Sacramento's way, because, you know, if El Paso do take the lead there, it really changes the shape of everything if Sacramento's chasing. And I think that aside, like the flow of the game and like how things played out, I was encouraged for one main reason, and that is like the chaos of last season is clearly like being pushed out of the team in terms of like, yeah, like there may be some games that are maybe a little bit more cagey, a little bit less like all action, you know. It's not going to be any 5-4s against Vegas, hopefully. But like the way that they controlled this match, the way that they set up, it is a big change of pace for Locomotive fans, I think, watching. But it is going to now be about like creating those couple of high quality chances and converting them, which to me is a much better foundation to work off of than what they did last season, which was just attack and go absolutely like hell for leather for 90 minutes and get beat most of the time. Here, Sacramento was pretty limited in like their attacking chances, and really the goal comes from a loss of possession in midfield, which is like how Sacramento would draw it up. They win possession in midfield, quickly find Rodrigo Lopez, who finds Dan Gurr, who drills across back across the 6-yard box, which as Locomotive lost the ball, they're all chasing back and facing their own goal, trying to defend that cross, which is the worst possible way to defend that cross. And it goes in, and Russell Cicerone, I mean, the guy that Sacramento brought in to do this for them, gets his goal on his debut. But really, for me, it was like a game of two chances. One big one that El Paso misses early, and then one big one that Sacramento puts away. And that is the difference. And as an El Paso fan, I'm much more satisfied with that being the margin than like needing oxygen at the end of the game and being like, what the hell was that? I don't understand what's happening. I think it's clear that Claire Hout has like a style, and he is doing a pretty good job of implementing it. And it'll just be about, can they, like, I don't know. I think they still probably have to look at the market for an attacker, because I do think they're pretty thin, and Lucho Soloniak is getting up there in years, so his availability is going to come at a premium, and we'll see what he's able to do. But yeah, they missed him in this one.
Yeah, and at the same time, like, that's how you draw it up if you're Sacramento. On the sly, starting, I think, 4 or 5 new players, which was somewhat unexpected, especially in the central midfield. Matt LaGrassa was displaced, and they looked every bit as organized defensively as you would have expected, given what they did last season. Cicerone had some good moments, both in the press and generating his own shot, which is something that you never saw from someone like a Keko in that same deployment that Cicerone had in this game. Do you like the fact that you had less than 40% possession if you're Sacramento? Probably not. Are you going to take that result every single time because you played your game? It didn't bleed really bad chances. I would say so.
So we have one last match that we were going to talk about, and it was John's Indy 11 versus also John's Tampa Bay Rowdies. To save time, I don't really know how much to say here besides this was a win every day of the year for Tampa Bay. And then the ref added like 3 yards to the box in one particular area. I feel like Indy was in the game. I feel like they could have got a point out of it, but also felt like I never felt like they were in danger of scoring either. It was a weird match that a draw seems fair, but also unfair at the same time. Maybe I'm completely misreading what I watched.
Indy got the better of the XG slightly. I would say that they probably had the more dangerous chances consistently, but when you're down 1-0 in the 97th minute and you're getting a terrible call, you didn't deserve to get a point, probably, because that's just what happened on the field. That stats be damned.
Yeah.
It is an interesting thing, though, that the Jake Ehrman goal comes at a time when Indy was like, they almost score at one end. They probably should score. There's a very good chance at one end, and then they immediately concede. So there is something to be said where I think like Indy had probably the better of the play, but definitely Lowry ball, like the goal scoring is always the last thing that clicks. So I don't know. They'll definitely at 96 minutes when you're 1-0 down, you bite somebody's hand off for a point. But yeah, I think overall they can be encouraged by going to El Lang and putting in what was what I would describe as a very solid performance. And they did deserve something out of the game. They just didn't deserve that penalty.
Yeah.
And just real quick before we move on, that Ehrman goal is only happening because Indy had to collapse onto JJ Williams and Cal Jennings in the box, and that left him wide open at the far post. That is such an immediate, obvious effect of a really good offseason for this Rowdies team. So they're going to be dynamite.
I want to play a little bit of devil's advocate with, like, it was still a foul.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't foul, he's in on goal, and there's a possible goal, right? There's a foul. There's a free kick from a dangerous area that could also result in a goal. Like, I don't think, like, oh, you got a penalty, so it like the draw is undeserved. Like, I think that's like we forget that there are a multitude of outcomes that could have happened if that wasn't a penalty. That could have also resulted in a goal being scored. I get that a penalty is like a higher XG than anything you would get from any other opportunity, but let's not take away the fact that Indy 11 had an opportunity to tie it up in the run of play, and Forrest Lasso fouled the guy, like pretty blatantly fouled him, right? And so if he gets in, like, who's saying that he doesn't beat the goalkeeper and score, right? Like,
That's
I understand
true.
that the penalty is a little bit like, okay, he was fouled outside the box. I'm sure the AR saw it as a continuation into the box, which is what he was probably calling. Like, I get all of those things, but let's not take away for the fact that Indy 11 was putting somewhat like enough pressure that it could have resulted in a goal regardless. So like you can't take away the penalty and it's not a foul either, right? You have a dangerous free kick in a dangerous area that could have resulted in something.
I will say though, for that free kick where that is, I mean, obviously they'll take the free kick over the penalty. I don't think that's that mind blowing, but I also think they'll take that free kick in that spot over the one that's 5 yards back, because it is so hard to get that ball down, like up and over the wall and down.
But they got Jack Blake, and Jack Blake is known for bangers on free kicks.
But from that close.
Why not?
That's the thing. I mean, it's just the fact that it's so close, that it's so hard to get a goal there. I mean, they do. That's true. Let's go on to the upcoming matches that we are predicting. And we're going to start with League One, because League One is back, and we've spent 40 minutes talking about the championship, and no one cares. Let's talk about no one, absolutely no one. I want to go ahead and start off with the most interesting matchup that you're probably going to get all year long. And it's North Carolina FC versus South Georgia Tormenta. This is the reigning champions who brought back a good core that lost a lot of defensive pieces and lost some good midfield pieces. But Tormenta going to promote through the youth system. They're going to sell them for $1 million because that's Tormenta, babe. And then North Carolina went out and bought every attacking player that's ever breathed. They went out and got a really good defense, and their midfield was already solid last year anyway. And oh yeah, they have young stud Nick Holiday still between the sticks. Don't forget about him. This is a really good North Carolina FC team that our friends at Walking 90, a lot of them think that they're going to win it all, versus South Georgia Tormenta, who's another team that they think is going to win it all. We are already seeing a potential like title match in game one. So I am going to just drop it over. Well, let's drop it to Ryan, because you're wearing the League One shirt. So Ryan.
Even just looking back at some of the historical results from the 2022 season, we forget that North Carolina actually beat Tormenta in that opening match of the year 1-0 and down in Tormenta. And that I really think that this matchup is going to be something that we'll see a rematch in the postseason this year. But I'm going to back North Carolina to get the result in this one and start off the year strong.
All right, let's hop up to John.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the players that North Carolina brought,
oh no, he's dead.
Whereas I could go on and on.
Oh,
am I lagging?
Yeah, it's, we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, for all the reasons that you guys mentioned, they've made a lot of impressive signings. Couple of championship guys dropping down for North Carolina, and I have found, and this may be a boring approach, but I have found the best way to predict League One is to pick the team that is playing at home, because that is how it works. So I'm picking North Carolina to take this one, but no, I do like the guys that they've brought in. They've got some really interesting pieces, and handful of Sad Wolves like alumni floating around. So yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup. I love Tormenta, one-time Locomotive linked manager Ian Cameron. So
egg salad legend.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I love what they do, but no, I'm picking North Carolina because they are playing at home and it's League One and that's how it works.
That's
And that is
fair.
something they will have to improve upon their home form from last season. They had 5 wins at home all year, but hopefully with these improvements they've made over the course of the offseason, that's something that will at least look a little bit better this year.
And we're going to get to some of the League One talk with Chattanooga when they kick off later next week. But I think people are going to be a little shocked of where Chattanooga is as well. But we'll get to that next week. Alan,
Yes.
what do you
North
think?
Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay. I mean, yeah, I'm going with Tormenta here. It's kind of the same idea of you're the Kings until you're not the Kings. That's kind of how I feel about it. And Tormenta just kind of restocked. They retooled. They did what they do, and they they still have really good players, and probably some guys that are just going to be up there to win it all. And all again, they're just going to run it back because they're just a machine, man. Next up, we are going to be talking about One Knox versus Lexington, which I really feel bad that our Lexington Luther is not here to talk about it. And W90 is walking 90. Go subscribe. But Lexington Luther is not here. He's really high on Lexington. Of course, our own Tyler Crane. One Knox went out and signed the basically just championship people. They went and signed everybody who's ever played for McKeever. Then they brought in people that know his system. They know everything about it, and they know about League One. That said, it's the conversation of, do you want to go all in, bring in players, or do you want to bring in local talent that's willing to play for a city? Because there is something about that too. This is a really interesting matchup. And these two cities hate each other because basketball and college football exist. So the rivalry's already there. So it's a really exciting matchup. I'm really excited to see how this one goes. Alan, you look like you have a comment you want to make.
I just don't pay attention that much to college basketball, so I was doing geography really quick. I was like, wait, Kentucky.
Trying to work out which college.
I think it's I-70. Is it I-75 that connects the two? Or is it 71?
Knoxville, Tennessee? Tennessee? I just don't like Tennessee because they play like that's one song over and over and over again. And so I just
the song that isn't their fight song.
Don't Stop Believing.
Yeah. Don't Stop Believing. There you go. That's the one.
My fiance, who is also an Alabama grad, looked at me with a disdained face when you mentioned the song that shall not be named. So I'm with you.
Like I went and watched minor league baseball in like nowhere, Tennessee, and they were even playing it. It was like everywhere. You're like, can we get like a second song, please? Just like one more. Just one more.
I also wish I was on Old Rocky Top, to be honest. Down in the Tennessee hills, because you can be on top down in the hills because the hills are in the valley, because that's what the song means, because that makes sense.
I mean, Whatever. It matches the show logo, our mountains and valleys.
That's true. Also, One Knox really did just take Greenville's kit. Like, it's not even any different. They just slapped a One Knox logo on it, which is nice, but come on, guys. But before we talk about, I guess we could talk about all this and we can have Tyler talk about it all. How about who's winning this thing? John, you're back and alive.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm on 4G on my phone, but I'm so committed to throwing some hate Tyler's way because I think One Knox is going to take this pretty easily. I'm a big fan of the squad that Knox has put together, like Sean Lewis in goal. I'm a big fan of a lot of the USL Championship guys they've brought in. There's some interesting pieces that they got from college and whatnot. Lexington is going to be a good team in a couple of years, and I think they're doing it the right way to support soccer in Lexington going forward and being sustainable. But that's not going to pay off in year one, in my estimation.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. My bad. We're
just
going to go over first order.
We look
got
similar,
it.
So go ahead, Phil.
You got it.
I'm also going with One Knox because I don't want to fall behind in the predictions, so I think almost everyone went with that. So I'm also going with that.
You're in a podium spot right now.
Right? You got to pick strategically as well, right? You got to give that strategery in there.
But I picked One Knox as well, and like Gio in our predictor, we both locked this game as our just lock of the week. And I will at least give credit to Tyler, who is going the Gio Greenville route and is locking Lexington to win this game. And I just feel like it, especially when you schedule these early season Derby Day matchups, it could really just galvanize the support in a crowd. If Knoxville can come out and just pick up that crucial win over their rivals in the league, it could really just electrify, to use a Kaler word, the atmosphere of that town, and it could really just kind of send the momentum forward for the rest of the year. So I have Knoxville winning in a lock.
Phil?
I've got Knoxville winning as well, because of this strong squad. Long term, over the course of the season, I think this is going to have Central Valley Fuego vibes in terms of the championship players that got brought in, and it's maybe not going to be a big hit the whole year, but I think they get it done against Lexington.
So I've seen some of the film to come out of the One Knox, some of the One Knox preseason friendlies, and some of the Lexington preseason friendlies. And you know what? I believe in Lexington a little bit more. One Knox has the talent, but I believe in the system that Sam Stockley has in place a little bit more than McKeever. I think this One Knox team is going to be more successful this season. But I think coming into this match, Lexington has a little bit of a hotter hand, and I like where their system is already set up. I'm going with Lexington on this one. We are going to go ahead and move on. If I can find where in the heck we are, we are going to go ahead and go back to the championship because there's not that many League One matches. It's opening weekend with not that many matches. A little bit disappointed with only 3 before our next show. So we're going to go down to Sacramento versus Charleston, and we're going to start off with Phil.
Yeah, I have to consult my picks. Yeah, I went with Sacramento mainly because Charleston is obviously going cross country, and I think ever since we've started this like interconference play, we've seen road teams do struggle when they have to go coast to coast. But all of that being said, I think Sacramento are built for this sort of game because Charleston, we saw them like not at their sharpest on the attacking end and get blunted by Phoenix. I think Sacramento are a much better defensive team. Well, that's whatever, stating the obvious. Sacramento are a much better defensive team than Phoenix by a long shot. And I think Charleston will struggle to break them down. Sacramento with Cicerone have proven goal scorers. I think they get it done.
Ryan?
Yeah, you can't overstate how difficult it is to go cross country and get a result. We saw that with Hartford going to Monterey Bay this past week. If you look back from last season, this was a Charleston Battery team who only won 1 game away from home all year, and it took them until I think double-digit road games to get that result, and it was against one of the worst teams in the league that season. And you compare that to a Sacramento Republic team who just had 2 defeats at home all last season, ironically one being against an Eastern Conference team in Birmingham, who went out there. But yeah, I think you can't overstate how important it is just for travel and attrition of players. But I think Sacramento get this victory.
Alan?
I wanted to pick Battery. I really did. Like I put it in, like I typed it in, and I'm like, but it's in Sacramento. I think if these were switched, I would have picked the other way. I liked the way that the Battery played. But I think Sacramento is just a tough place to play, even if you're a good team. So I regretted it, but I picked Sacramento to be on the safe side. But my heart is with the Battery and hoping that they can start to revive themselves as a franchise.
The shade, even if you're a good team.
Yeah. John?
Yeah, I went draw here. I think obviously the home and away is going to matter to an extent. I really liked what Charleston did defensively in that last game. I know we talked about Phoenix looked like they were possessing for possession's sake. That's because the Battery's high press was really effective at stifling them in build up. And they're playing this 4-3-3 where basically you've got Fidel Barajas, who's 17 years old on one wing, and Nick Markanik on the other wing, who just signed out of college. And both of them looked like they had been running a Ben Pyramid press for years. That's only going to improve. They've got the talent to, and that matches up well with the back three for Sacramento. So I think they're going to create some trouble for them. And obviously, that's not Sacramento's game, but I think this is going to be a chippy one. I lean Charleston if somebody gets a win, but I think it's going to be a draw at the end of the day.
I think it's going to be a draw as well, but if we're going for my picks, I refuse to pick draws. I only pick winners, babe. So I'm going Charleston, or not Charleston, excuse me, Sacramento, because I really believe in the back line. I believe in the attack. I just kind of believe in what Briggs does. And I mean, Sacramento is one of the hardest places to play in the league. And for the same reason that you mentioned, John, these are young guys who have not got a lot of professional experiences, who have not been to a place like Sacramento. They just haven't. And that first, cross country trip, maybe they've done it before, but never when they're getting paid. It really does. There is something different about it. And I think the experience at home for Sacramento is going to be what pushes them over the top. I'm taking Sacramento, but I do think it's going to be a draw. Next up, we have one of the sneaky, more interesting matchups of the weekend that I am super excited about, and that's going to be Monterey Bay versus Louisville City. Monterey Bay that beat Louisville City last year. Phil.
Acknowledging that Monterey Bay did get one over on Louisville last year, I think Louisville get it done. I've got them winning. I almost locked this one. I think the only thing from Monterey Bay's performance that gives me pause about Louisville going there and getting a result were the 3 goals they conceded. And I don't think that they can do that against Louisville and win. I don't think they'll score 5. Clip this and, freezing cold takes when Monterey put 5 on Louisville, but yeah.
Ryan?
Yeah, I think there's, while it's notable to look at Monterey Bay getting a result over Louisville last season, that was a Monterey Bay win that came in Louisville's worst stretch of the year that season with 3 losses and 4 at the time. So I do think that's something to kind of at least put an asterisk behind. But yeah, it's just, I don't think you can give Louisville that many chances at goal like they gave Hartford and expect to come away with a result. If you're looking at games from last year, was the actually game right before they played Monterey Bay last season, a 3-4 defeat against Los Dos that I think was one of the few times Louisville scored multiple goals in a match and didn't come away with something in it. So I'm going to be taking Louisville City to win this one.
Yeah, I can imagine like a 2nd-minute red card for Louisville, and then Monterey Bay puts up 5, and then feels like I do think that 5 is going to be one of those overreaction of the first week. Like it looks sexy on paper, and it looks surprising on paper, but I think Lou City has too much for them. They're good, and I do believe that Monterey Bay is going to be a successful team this season, and I don't think it's going to be as successful in this match. So I went with Louisville.
Would you say if this was Monterey Bay's 7, or if last week was Monterey Bay's 7-0 victory over Man United, this week is their 0-1 loss to Bournemouth?
God damn
it. I
quit. Too much.
Getting back away from the fake league that Ryan is acknowledging, the one that doesn't exist on this show. John?
Yeah, Louisville on the sly had a really bad game against Orange County. like the advanced stats, just pure shot numbers lean towards them maybe being outplayed. At the same time, missing Wilson Harris, missing Ray Serrano. There were a lot of things that were going against them. Being on the road in Orange County to start the year, I think it was Danny Cruz who was talking about the effect of a 10 p.m. start time. Either way, they're going to be a little bit more accustomed to the scenario that they're in this week. I think they're the better team, even if I'm really high on Monterey. So I went with Louisville.
Yeah, so I'm also going Louisville, but here's the thing. You mentioned Wilson being out. And even then, it's still kind of the death taxes Cameron Lancaster, situation. But I also think that this is a back line that I think that can handle this attack. I believe that Monterey Bay can really do some defensive damage, if you will, against this attack. I mean, Brian Obi's a dude, but he also kind of picked up a knock that was kind of talked about as well, about how he had a deep gash in his foot and how he played on. Something tells me he's not going to get that kind of treatment now that they know it exists. Lancaster, I mean, he went 80 something minutes in the match, but also will he do that again? I'm not sure. Mushagalusa is good, but like he kind of is hit or miss at times. Obviously, this is a stacked Louisville team, but I also think that this is a kind of a matchup that may actually kind of lend itself to Monterey Bay. But at some point, you just need to kind of go with, the class of the class, and Louisville is that. So I'm going to take Louisville to win, but do not be shocked by a Monterey Bay victory. And last but not least, I'm sure will be the least toxic fan bases on Twitter. And that will be San Diego Loyal versus the Phoenix Rising. Speaking of toxicity, Alan.
Thanks, I guess. I mean,
that sounded like a Detroit lead in. Wait a minute.
Right? I was like opening your season against Detroit and then moving to Phoenix is like Twitter wars opening 2 games. And then San Diego Loyal gets to open Phoenix's stadium for them as well.
Most terminally online fan bases.
Yes. I mean,
if we could have just had Phoenix, Cincinnati, and Detroit all in the USL at the same time, that would have been what really put the nail in the coffin for Twitter.
They thought about it, and that's when pictures stopped loading on Twitter. That just broke Twitter. Never mind. I think it's going to be a tough test for San Diego, right? Like they're claiming they worked on their defense first, and so Phoenix is going to be a step up from Detroit as far as attack is concerned. And then the concern about scoring goals for San Diego is they only scored 1, which is like enough to win, but might not be enough to get anything out of a game against Phoenix if Phoenix starts to put some things together, right? Danny Trejo has burned San Diego plenty of times when he played for a worse team in Las Vegas compared to this Phoenix team. I think the rivalry on the field is not going to feel as the same with as many players leaving, but I think the fan bases still feel it. I wasn't entirely impressed with Phoenix last weekend, but I do think Phoenix is going to turn out to be a pretty solid playoff team if they can put their pieces together. And so, like, you don't want to be the team that Phoenix puts it together against first. And so this is going to be a nice early test for both teams to kind of see actually where they are. I think Loyal's back line is going to have their work cut out for them. And then, can San Diego take advantage of maybe a not consistent back line for Phoenix and maybe get their offense going? So it's really going to be who can put together a good run of form. I did not lock this one because other people did, and I get really nervous anytime Phoenix plays San Diego. It's like Oakland too, right? It's like any game against San Diego versus Oakland, I'm just like, can I just not pick that one? It should be an entertaining match, but I went with Loyal because if I don't, the chairman will come after me on Sunday. He won't really. I'm safe.
If I say what I think, I will be suspended.
If I speak.
Yeah, I have Loyal winning this one, and I have it locked, which I think Phoenix's defensive performance against Charleston is just like it's giving last season. Like it was not good. And I think it's enough to not buy Phoenix yet. As the comeback is not complete until I see them put together like a complete controlled performance. And everything's just been kind of leaning chaos. And as I said at the top of the show with El Paso, like I'm glad that it's gone from El Paso, and I think Phoenix is going to continue to suffer a little bit because of it.
Ryan?
Yeah, I picked San Diego to win this one as well. But one of the things that I think is really interesting with that one, and Alan, you had mentioned it, was Phoenix or San Diego traveling to Phoenix to open up the Rising Stadium for this year. But San Diego has a game against Sacramento in between playing Phoenix and then playing them again. And I'm curious if the extended period off is going to just kind of play a role in how every team or how each team approaches that kind of second game against each other. And it honestly would not surprise me if the results are split or if San Diego can't pick up both wins here. But I do think they win this weekend against Phoenix, so I'm taking them on that one.
All right, John.
If there was something that stood out for me from that Detroit performance in terms of Loyal, it was the way that right off the bat, Joe Corona and Charlie Adams had great chemistry in the middle, very good at denying space to like Reese Williams, Maxi Rodriguez. I think given that Charleston shut down Danny Trejo, they were able to limit Fede Varela. San Diego has the personnel to do that same thing against Phoenix. I think the Rising are going to struggle to create chances. This was my lock for the week. I've got San Diego.
Here's kind of where I stand. I saw a little bit of Loyal freak out, a little bit of we scored one goal because our center back hit a beautiful volley. I would also just ignore FODMOB for a little bit, especially when it comes to defensive ratings. Detroit still has a really good back line. They still have a really good defense. I really liked what I saw out of them. And in my eyes, maybe I'm uninformed, maybe I'm an idiot. I am an idiot. Go ahead, clip that. Phoenix is a major step down, maybe two, from Detroit's back line. I'm not saying that Loyal are going to put up 3, 4, 5 goals, but I also think they're going to be able to see the ball move into that attacking third a lot more fluid than they did against Detroit City. And I think that this will end up being a fairly comfortable win for Loyal. Maybe the scoreline may not say comfort, but I think the vibe on the pitch will be a lot better than the scoreline will say. I'm taking Loyal, not my lock though. So I think that is all the USL stuff. Also, Andy, you don't need to send that to my fiance. She saw me say that and then just smiled at me. So she acknowledges that I am an idiot. So anyway, I think that's about all the USL stuff, unless anybody has anything they really want to bring up. No. Beautiful. All right, Phil, final thoughts for the people.
Well, I'll do a couple shameless plugs. The first is for all the Locomotive fans. Seriously Loco is back with like in-season stuff. So we've got an episode out now about the Sacramento game. We've got another episode coming after the Colorado Springs game tomorrow. And then we've got Detroit at the weekend. So it's going to be a fun stretch of games. Nothing like a 3-day week to start off the season, or a 3-game week to start the season, I should say. And then, daylight savings is still ruining my life. I don't know why this change is impacting me more than like past years, but this is, it's
child.
just, so she's like, fine. I was like, oh, it's going to really screw up her schedule. She's good. She hasn't been impacted at all. Meanwhile, her father is like just riding the struggle bus, struggles the clown. Like I'm just absolutely, in the mud, as the kids are saying. So
Ryan?
I will say, at least my impact from daylight savings time is that the cat bothers us an hour later now for food. Typically, she would always start bothering us at 3:30, and she doesn't get fed until 4:30. So now she's actually, I think, now back on the correct cycle at least. But in other news, yeah, we're now going to have 2 episodes of TV of note on Wednesdays moving forward with The Mandalorian and Ted Lasso season 3 returning tomorrow. So busy TV schedules ahead.
Yeah. Alan?
Yeah, so I'm boycotting all this, like releasing it 1 week at a time. Like I haven't watched Mandalorian yet because I'm waiting for more episodes to come out so I can watch 4 or 5 at a time because that's how I want to consume my media. Don't try to tell me how to consume my media, Disney. All right, stop with this 1 episode at a time business. What are you, HBO?
See, they got to do the HBO though, where they put it out at a time. Like, don't drop it at midnight. Drop it at like 9 p.m. and make it a like event. You know.
Well, you say that, but Ted Lasso just dropped at 9 p.m. as we were starting this podcast. So Apple knows what they're doing. Yeah,
I guess.
I mean, I have a schedule now where it's like I have blocks of time to watch things. I don't have like consistent like opening like once a week, and plus like I'm living not at home for part of the week, so I have to like wait to watch some of the stuff with my wife over the weekend. I'm just like, no, we're just gonna wait. We're gonna have like a nice Saturday morning where we watch 5 episodes of Mandalorian in a row and like veg out and eat and drink our coffee. So like, don't tell me how to live my life, Disney. On the other hand, shout out to the Walking 90 guys. I know they got that name from how I would probably play soccer. Just putting that out there.
That's a thing. Walking football. That's a thing.
I would probably be cut. They're like, you're not trying hard enough.
No pace.
Yeah, no pace.
Is it like speed walking?
It's not standing 90 Underwood. It's walking 90. Shout out to those guys. I know they do good work. I'll let John give his spiel about backheeled. But Two Balls Underwood is also back with the covering San Diego Loyal with the best podcast name in all of soccer. I think Two Balls Underwood is
serious media.
Yeah, we're serious media.
Very serious
media. We drop rumors and get phone calls from the front office. So, John.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say first and foremost that the USL show is real hard-hitting journalism. I mean, what we're doing right now is breaking news, asking the questions that matter in this league. So it really is cool if you're a soccer fan. But
you're not the admin. You don't have to deal with this.
He doesn't at me. It's not my problem. Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I wanted to say is I'm crying in the club that Banshees of Inisherin didn't win any awards. So in and out with that.
Oh man. Yeah. Please subscribe to all the things. Backhilled, Seriously Loco. Is there something for Two Balls? Is there a Patreon?
Our no, we're free. Like we know our worth and we are not charging anything.
It's very serious.
Plug your Venmo.
Yeah, if you want to send me, like, don't send me something. I make like hit up Tony and Chiva. Like I have a pretty solid career where I do not need you to Venmo me anything. Like I'm good. Just laugh and support Tony and Chiva.
St. Patrick's Day is Friday. Buy him a beer.
It's true. Very true. Let's see. Usually I go with the classical music thing. Watsky dropped a new album, It's Intentions, and he has a song called What's the Move with T-Pain, and it is a heater. So it's like, if you just want to just listen to the beat of it, like the sample of it goes hard. It's a great time. Let's see. I don't think I have anything really to plug. I have Hammering Down stuff coming out, but also, honestly, you don't want to listen to me talk anymore. I get it. Yeah, I get to spend a little bit of time with the fiance, which is always a wonderful time. We're closing down on almost 2 months till the wedding, which is like getting scary at the same time. It's like, oh boy, I actually have to make decisions. I hate this. So yeah. Yeah. But I think that's about it. I think check out Ryan's Twitter because he's going to be posting the rest of our picks, because just because we talked about 5 doesn't mean we didn't do our normal 10. and there were
Tweet's
some
already up.
non-locks. So please check out his Twitter. We'll retweet it. You can hold it over our heads like you always will. As you probably should, except
got
for
one
you,
more.
the admin.
I got one more thing. Robert, the joke's on you. I locked San Antonio last week and this week. Bow, 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 bow.
Can't wait to see San Antonio eventually choke it away because you locked them twice. But until for the last time tonight, y'all, cue Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show. This and every episode is brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network. Find podcasts and other written work at bgn.fm. Once again, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you guys again next week.